Remembering God. What is more important, deserving God or needing God? Oftentimes we judge ourselves. We feel that we need to earn deservedness of God, that we need to become deserving of receiving God's grace. We feel we need to do good deeds, meritorious deeds, do spiritual work, do religious work, do something that is pleasing to God so that we can attract God's attention. Sometimes we feel, what is it that I can do to receive God's grace? In other words, how to become deserving of God. And then there is the other aspect, and that is, God, I need you. To need God, मुझे तुम्हारी जरूरत है. You don't need to be deserving. All people need food. Do we deserve air or do we need air? All human beings need air. There is no qualification needed to breathe air. We just need air and we take it. Same thing with God, because God is even more available than air. Air is available only in the atmosphere of the earth. And as you go up in elevation, the air becomes thin. At the Mount Everest level, the density of air and the amount of oxygen available is less. And if you go in the outer space, there is no air. Air is the second element. The first element is space. Space is subtler than air. And there is something called the sixth element. And the sixth element really, or the zero element, if you want to call it that way, the zeroth element is God. God is even more subtle than space. We know space is everywhere, but God is even subtler, is even beyond space. God existed before space existed. Na tha kuch to khuda tha, kuch na hota to khuda hota. All of us human beings, we occupy space. Do I deserve space or do I need space? Same thing with God. I don't have to deserve God. I just have to need God. What tool to use? Just remembering God. That is enough. Have you had coincidences where you said, I was just thinking about you and you just called? If a human being can respond to our so-called sixth sense, which I will call it the zeroth sense, why would not God? Because God is immediately available. God is more immediate to me than the air. So when I remember God, I immediately tune into God. What God asks of us is to remember God, is to need God. We as parents, do we expect our kids to be deserving of our love, to be deserving of our attention, to be deserving of our help, or just ask for it? If we at human level can respond in that large-hearted, magnanimous way, why would God not do that? In one interview, Baba said, I have the love of 1,000 mothers, but you will not understand. More often than not, God fulfills our needs before we even ask for it by just remembering God. That is why in Kali Yuga, Nama Smarna is considered the easiest path. Just remember Him. Remember God in whichever way you want. And that path is also path of devotion, loving God. Because when you remember God, you will love God, right? Whether it is through reading, through bhajans, or just contemplating on the stories, or Bhagavatam, the stories of God and its devotees, or your own customized Bhagavatam, which means me and my Lord. My sweet Lord, my sweet Lord, my sweet Lord, my sweet Lord. When I remember God, I love God. When I love God, that's the best way to say, I love me. February is the month of love, of self-love.